Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the most legendary stories in human history. We're talking about the strongest men in Greece, a figure whose very name is basically synonymous with unimaginable power. But as we start pulling back the layers of this story, you're going to see pretty quickly that this is not just some simple tale of muscle and monsters. Oh no, it's a dramatic, incredibly high-stakes journey of a broken soul desperately trying to repair the irreparable. Think about it for a second. Can 12 impossible tasks actually erase an unforgivable past? Because that right there is the core engine of our explainer today. We really need to frame this correctly from the jump. This is not merely a monster hunt. It's a deeply emotional, grueling quest for a man trying to reclaim his own humanity. You see, before he was a legend, he was just a man drowning in absolute regret, burdened with achieving the literal impossible just to cleanse his spirit. Chapter 1: A Hero's Darkest Night. So, driven completely mad by divine envy, Heracles committed the absolute unthinkable. And when the darkness finally lifted and he realized what he'd done, he desperately sought redemption. He went straight to the oracle. Her decree? It was absolute. She demanded the impossible to cleanse his soul. 12 labors. The king who commanded these tasks was waiting for him, basically taunting him that, hey, maybe, just maybe, if he survived, the gods might forgive him. I just love his response to all this. I seek no forgiveness from kings. I mean, the sheer defiance and pride bleeding through those words, right? Heracles accepts this colossal challenge, sure, but he does it entirely on his own spiritual terms. His resolve is just absolute. He isn't doing this to please some mortal ruler. He is doing it for his own salvation. Moving on to Chapter 2, Beasts of Brute Force. The early stages of his journey required exactly what Heracles was famous for: unbelievable visceral power. It was literally a rapid-fire gauntlet of horrors. First up, the Nemean Lion. This was a beast with a hide that no blade could pierce. So when steel failed, Heracles literally used his bare hands to choke the life right out of it. Talk about an intense workout. Then, the Hydra. Every single time he severed a head, 2 more grew back in its place, until he and his cousin realized they had to scorch the wounds to stop the regeneration. He faced the devastating Cretan bull, meeting divine fury with pure, unadulterated physical strength. And finally, the terrifying mares of Diomedes, man-eating horses whose reign of terror only ended when Heracles fearlessly overthrew their cruel tyrant king. Now here's where things get super interesting. The contrast is incredible. Heracles easily dominated monsters like the Hydra and the bull physically, but then he hits this massive roadblock, the Golden Hind. This wasn't some swamp monster. It was a sacred creature belonging to the goddess Artemis, and it was faster than the wind. For the very first time, Heracles faced an enemy he literally could not fight. He couldn't just crush it. Instead, he had to patiently, painstakingly track this creature for an entire year just to capture it without causing a single scratch. So when the goddess Artemis finally confronts him, furious, demanding to know why he took her sacred animal, his response is just so telling. I serve the will of the gods and seek redemption. Do you catch that shift? This isn't the arrogant warrior choking a lion anymore. This is humility. He's learning patience. He's learning submission to a higher power. And Artemis, seeing the honest truth in his heart, actually lets him pass. Which brings us to Chapter 3, Strategy over Pure Strength. The impossible was slowly starting to feel a bit more manageable, but raw brawn just wasn't cutting it anymore. The next task: clean the Aegean stables. We're talking literal mountains of decades-old filth, and he had to do it in a single day. You have to admit, making history's strongest man shovel manure is pretty absurd. But he didn't just grab a giant shovel. He used his intellect. He shattered the earth and diverted 2 rushing rivers to do the heavy lifting for him, washing away that impossible mess before the sun even set. It really proves that intellect and ingenuity are just as heroic as big muscles. And this tactical mindset just kept building. Take the Erymanthian boar. He knew he couldn't just outrun it, so what does he do? He uses the environment. He chases the beast until it bogs down and traps itself in the deep, frozen mountain snow. Then there were the Stymphalian birds, creatures that basically killed from the sky. He couldn't reach them up there, so guided by Athena, he uses a sacred bronze instrument to create this massive, deafening noise, shattering their silence and driving thousands of them into the open sky where he could finally shoot them down. True heroes adapt, right? And Hercules was completely mastering his environment. Chapter 4, To the World's Edge. The tone gets a lot heavier here as the labors pull him completely off the map. His ninth labor brought him face to face with the fierce Amazon warriors to retrieve the belt of Queen Hippolyta. Now, this actually wasn't supposed to be a battle. Hippolyta welcomed him, she heard his story, and she willingly offered up the belt. But divine hatred from Olympus intervened again, sparking a tragic, devastating misunderstanding that turned a perfectly peaceful meeting into an absolute bloodbath. It's this painful reminder that even when our hero does everything exactly right, the curse of his past is still there, haunting him. Pushing even further to the absolute edge of the earth, he was after the golden apples. To get them, he had to make a bargain with Atlas, the Titan who literally bore the weight of the heavens. Heracles offers a simple trade. Hold the heavens for me, and I shall bring the apples. For the very first time, Heracles took on a burden that was planetary. Just pause for a second and imagine that. The immense, terrifying, bone-crushing weight of the entire sky resting solely on his shoulders. But of course, Atlas is finally free of this torment, and he has absolutely no intention of taking the sky back. So how does the strongest man in history escape this one? Not with a punch, that's for sure. Heracles uses a remarkably simple, almost comical verbal trick. He calmly agrees to keep holding the sky, but he just asks Atlas to take it back for one quick second so he can adjust his position. And you know what? Atlas actually falls for it. Heracles just scoops up the apples and walks away. It's a stunning display of wit over limitless power. Chapter 5: Conquering the Underworld. Only one labor remained, and it was a terrifying one. It required descending into the very land of the dead. Just imagine that chilling atmosphere. Absolutely no living man willingly enters this realm. The dead watched in total, unnerving silence as Heracles approached the dark throne of Hades himself. He asked for Cerberus, the monstrous, multi-headed guardian of the underworld, and Hades basically just looked at him and said, "Take him, if you can." Deep within the darkness, the final battle kicked off. And what's just so deeply poetic about this moment is that neither sword nor spear decided the fight. Heracles dropped his weapons. He relied purely on the bare-handed strength he started this whole journey with to subdue the roaring beast. His physical journey and his spiritual journey just converged perfectly, bringing the entire epic full circle. The 12th labor was complete. And finally, Chapter 6, the meaning of redemption. So the impossible tasks are officially over. The hero returns home, and we really need to take a step back and look at the incredible evolution he underwent to understand what this all actually meant. Heracles starts with a tragic fall into utter darkness. He initially tries to fight his way out using pure brute force, but the trials force him to adapt, to develop a strategic mind. He pushes way past the edge of the known world until he is literally conquering death in the underworld, which finally, ultimately leads him to spiritual absolution. It's a masterclass in how incredible resilience can transform our most impossible past mistakes. To summarize this whole explainer, we have to remember this was never just some random list of slain monsters. The real takeaway here? The myth teaches us that the mind is the ultimate battlefield. It shows us, again and again, that intellect and adaptability are just as crucial as raw physical power. And above all, it proves that ultimate redemption requires profound, painful sacrifice. The man who began his journey as a broken, guilty soul evolved, through immense courage and suffering, into an absolute legend. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Is true redemption found in the impossible tasks we complete? Or is it actually found in the person we become along the way? Think about that the next time you're facing an impossible mountain in your own life. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep pushing forward, and I'll see you next time.